Yes? What party? You represent a party? Yes?
IPYF, Interparty Youth Forum.
Which party? Which political party in particular?
Democratic Party of Kenya.
DP. Wapi makofi ya DP? And you, madam? Gina, alafu?
Gabriela Lorere, Party. Gabriela Lorere from Upia Party. Ya Ukuru ya Tani.
Okay, Upia Party. And of course we have the schools. Buruburu Buruburu Girls Compuera Compuera ainanga boys? No, siulizi kwa ubaya. It's not Aikwangi boys? Okay. Dandora Nairobi Alliance High School. Pioneer University. Huh? Okay, Daystar University. Tuko kwenyu na mnaogopa. Daystar University? Which other institution is here that I haven't recognized? Is there another institution, learning institution that I haven't recognized? What? Sindio? Okay. So, we had, is there another institution that protects democracy? Yes? Oh, Siasa Place is also here. Asante sana, Siasa Place. Siasa Place is a very interesting organization for young people. So wacha nikupatie nafasi. Useme tu kidogo wapi ile microphone. Tell us your name and then tell the young people what Siasa Place does, because I know it's very key to this celebration today.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sheila Karuga. I'm from Siasa Place. I'm the PR Marketing and Communications Manager. Siasa Place is a youth-led civic tech organization that promotes the youth participation in democratic processes. We teach young people about civic education, policy making, and we also conduct trainings. Thank you.
So Siasa Place is an organization of young people. Basically, they take a lead in making sure that young people are engaged in politics. There are guests who just walked in. We welcome you all. Bent, good to see you. Honorable Beatrice Elachi, karibu sana. I'll be naming the other guests as we proceed. So, DJ, you'll give us some music as we confer, as we move on to the next part of the program. DJ.
Good afternoon, my name is Ron Otieno and welcome to the International Day of Democracy live here in Daystar University, Nairobi campus, courtesy of the Center of Democracy, Kenya. Now today the event is about empowering the youth generation, the young generation on democracy. We are going to see the frameworks and the plans that are in place to improve the democracy of Kenya. We are going to learn about the history of democracy. We are going to see which parties are involved in taking Kenya to the next level in terms of democracy. We are also going to learn about, as young men, as young women, what is our role that we play in taking Kenya to the next level of democracy. Now, today is not only about the youth. We also have keynote speakers that will be gracing the event today. One of the keynote speakers we have today is the Permanent Secretary of Labor and Skill Development, Honorable Geoffrey Kaituko. And also we have Honorable Beatrice Elachi, member of Dagoretti, also member of parliament, will be gracing us today. We also have Dr. Johnston Kuya, the Senior Policy Officer, Strategic Partnerships Embassy of the Kingdom of Netherlands, and also not to forget the Executive Director of CMD, which also means the Center for Multi-Party Democracy of Kenya. Mr. Franklin Mukwanja will be with us today and will be taking us today on whatever to do with democracy. And also we are having small talks and interviews to know more about democracy in Kenya today. For example, do you know the democracy came about in Kenya, multi-party came in Kenya about 1991 in December, right? Were you born in 1991? Of course, as young people, we need to know also this. Now, in 1991 is when Kenya was able to become a multi-party state. And from then, people are able to vote for their people they want, which party they want to join. And also, free and fair election was invented in that day. Moving on swiftly to 2004 is when the CMD, the Center of Multi-Party Democracy in Kenya, was formed. Now, CMD is a non-profitable organization that seeks to help countries such as Kenya in improving its democratic state. For example, organizing such forums for the youth, empowerment, where they can learn more about democracy, get to know how they can join parties, how parties can also live with each other in harmony and peace. For example, the 2007 and 8 elections that really was catastrophic for the country. It is such events that the CMD hopes to do away with. And today we are going to see about also the youth. For example, the Buruburu girls are in place. We are going to hear about the high schoolers, how they also know about democracy, because it's not only about being us in university or the common mwananchi. Also, the young people such as who are in high schoolers, they need to know more about democracy in Kenya. And also, you viewers, don't forget also to follow our social media platforms at Daystar _Instagram for more information and keeping in touch with us. And also Facebook, Daystar University Official, and also for Twitter, it is Daystar University. And also, don't forget about the CMD social platforms. It is CMD Kenya. I hope you will join us for more details and for more information. Please stay tuned, and also remember that from Daystar, wherever you are, please spread the word, spread the news from Daystar. And also, it is the International Day of Democracy, so tune in, just comment on anything to do with the International Day of Democracy 2023. Share your views, share your comments, and we are here to participate and here to enjoy and to learn. And I hope to just see more of you, those comments down there, as we discuss more in terms of International Day of Democracy. Maybe if we get one person to do us or ask them about their views on democracy. I don't know if that is possible right now, but if not, please stay tuned, keep in touch with us at Daystar University Live, and also don't forget CMD Kenya. Those are the places to look for us and to find us. I think I'll switch over to you, Director. Yes.
Let us remain standing for one verse of the East African anthem.
Taomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
While still standing, ladies and gentlemen, I will call Dr. Justus Musia, the head of Department Peace and International Affairs, to open with a prayer.
Let's pray together. Father, in the mighty name of our Lord Jesus Christ, we are so grateful to you. I thank you for what you are and for what you mean in our lives. We want to thank you for this event. I thank you for the organizers. I thank you for all those of us who have come. Our guests are here with us. I thank you for opening this opportunity for us to talk about democracy. Father, I want to pray the Lord, we are going to be with each and every one of us. Those who are going to participate, those who are going to give speeches, I want to pray the Lord, you are going to direct us. I thank you for Daystar University for hosting us. We are so grateful, and you have brought us from different places. As we begin, we want to pray the Lord, you are going to begin with us, you are going to go with us. When you come to the end, Father, remind us to thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Karibuni, have a seat. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2007, the UN declared that every 15th of September, the whole world or UN members will be marking the International Day of Democracy. Yes, it should be 15th, but we are doing it on 13th. In true Kenyan fashion. Bas, hawatuambi chochote, sisi tunafanya 13th. Mapema ndio nini? That is why we are doing it today. But of course, the International Day of Democracy is a day that we basically examine the progress that has been made, the democratic gains that have been made, especially in this country, Kenya, the democratic gains that have been made across the world, the missteps that we've made as well, okay? And we discuss and look at the progress where we want to be in the future. Today's, or this year's celebration are coming in the backdrop, on the backdrop of very interesting times. On the backdrop of a coup in Gabon, of a coup in Niger. Of course, it's also coming when this country is celebrating a year, exactly a year, after having a new government that was put in place through a democratic process that was validated by the Supreme Court. Okay? So it's a special day, and I invite all of us as we, reflect on democracy for our country and for the continent and in the institutions, because the school children are not here by default. This event could have been taken to Uhuru Park, could have been taken to anywhere else, but has been brought here for the purpose that this year's theme of the International Day of Democracy is very simple: empowering the next generation. Okay? It's about making sure that the young people have their voices heard. They have to claim their space in advancing democracy around them, in their schools, the institutions, colleges, universities, and of course, that is what will translate into better democratic practices in Kenya and around the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you. My name is Papi Odek. I will be your MC for the day, and you'll be seeing my face a lot. As I said, we have an event that is hybrid. This event is being streamed live on the YouTube channels of both the CMD Kenya and the Daystar University Kenya. So tumia wale wako nyumbani waambie wategee, they might just see your face on the internet, on TV. So also engage online, engage on social media through the hashtag IDD2023. The hashtag on social media is IDD2023. Make sure that we trend. So wale wako na simu, Wi-Fi iko, the Wi-Fi is there. If you go to your phone, Wi-Fi is free. Look for, there it is. Edu, Rome, there's no password. Please make sure that we engage, continue to progress the engagement even in the social media space. So I will not talk much, but I will invite, this is a day for young people. So we have privilege of having the president of DUSA. DUSA is the Daystar University Students Association. Let's have a young person opening up, and then we shall have the principal welcome as official. Tupigeni makofi, Mr. Geoffrey Toom.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon once again. Just wave at me kindly, even if you don't know me. As you've heard, my name is Geoffrey Toom. I'm the president of Daystar University Student Association. I'm here to acknowledge the guests present. So allow me to start with the Principal Secretary of the State Department of Labor, Honorable Geoffrey Kaituko, karibu sana mheshimiwa. The Member of Parliament of Dagoretti North, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, karibu sana mheshimiwa. The diplomats present, Honorable Geishe, Deputy Head of Missions, Embassy of Norway, Dr. Johnston Kuya, Senior Policy Officer, Kingdom of Netherlands, Mildred Nzau, Program Analyst for Deepening Democracy, UN Women, Angela Wambugwa, TLDG, as well from UN Women, Executive of CMD, Mr. Franklin Mukwanja, all senior institutions present, and last but not least, the wise, great, committed, truthful, amazing comrades of Daystar. Good afternoon once again. Given that I'm an IR student and IR was part of organizing this event, kindly allow me to make a few remarks in line with today's event. So indeed, democracy is a process. Its passive nature is such that all manner of political systems claim to be democracies. Countries that have never held an election in decades, such as former Zaire, are baptized as democratic republics. Other countries without a competitive party system, such as Uganda, this was between 1986 and 2006, called themselves non-party democracies. There is a book by a gentleman called Francis Fukuyama, and he writes, and I quote, that until recently, liberal democracy is the highest form of human government that cannot be improved upon. So let's come home. In Kenya, it's a no-brainer that 75% of the population are below the age of 35. Those are the youth. And we barely have any say in the state of affairs in this country. Despite being the majority, we've always been criminalized, marginalized, and relegated to the background. This is true, as you can attest. If you can widen the scope to Africa in general, the youth are mainly used as a weapon. The youth are used to slow down democracy through proliferation of violence. And I'll give an example of DRC with its never-ending civil wars. We have Kenya in 2007, the post-election violence, which were perpetrated by the youth. Even the recently concluded, I hope, the Maandamano, whereby the youth were the ones destroying property. And you know, it's very ludicrous that we'd march and destroy public property that we ourselves use. So I also in Niger, as the MC mentioned, the coup that happened, we all know after seeing the news, the role that the youth played. So I say before you, my friends, The real solutions must come collectively from us, the youth, as progressive and democratic young-minded Africans. Because if this continues, then in the words of our great philosopher in Kenya, Kitaturamba, all we need to have is the courageous and committed belief at heart in the ability to change the world today. So, as I conclude, because I don't want to take too much of your time, I leave you with a question. Is the world better prepared for the future challenges? And if not, what role could democratic institutions play moving forward? Thank you, and karibuni sana Daystar.
Asante sana. Let's give him a round of applause, please. Amesema Kitaturamba. Ambia mtu kando yako, mwambie Kitaturamba. Mwambie ukimwangalia kwa macho, Kitaturamba. For those who do not understand Kitaturamba bent, Kitaturamba means it will lick us. Okay, but anyway, the reason why we have young people and we want to involve the young people in this discourse, tunafanya hivi ndio kisiturambe. Sawa sawa? So, wale wakubwa kama sisi kimeshaturamba. As the young people who are coming up, make sure kisiturambe tena. Sawa sawa? So, I want to call the principal of this school, Professor Mureithi, to welcome us officially. Unajua ukiona sisi ni Waafrika, ukiingia kwa boma ya mtu, lazima kukaribishe. Karibu principal.
Thank you. Sijui kama Kitaturamba. I really don't know what it means. I think it has a deeper meaning than that. But this is the language of the young people, and I think it has reached the political level. And so anyway, Bwana PS, Dr. Honorable Geoffrey Kaituko, our ambassador from Denmark, not Netherlands. I think there is need for correction. I think earlier on, some of these, the far countries, sometimes we confuse them, but I think it's Denmark. Am I right? Ambassador is not there. Okay, he's the representative of the ambassador. So welcome to, and our other guests, all protocol observed. Welcome to Daystar University. This is the smaller university. We have the main campus, which is Adrifa campus, which is sits on a 300-acre piece of land. This is only a very small, but I was telling Mheshimiwa from the Great North area, this is the mother of the university. This, you know, the mother doesn't have to be big, but he can have big children. So Adrifa is big. This is small. But you know what? The population is almost 50-50. The population is almost 50-50. So today we are talking about democracy, and since I'm here to welcome you on behalf of management, and I can see we have young people, let me also tell the young people, this is a university, and when you get to the university, you learn. We have programs ranging from certificate, diploma, degrees, what we call undergraduate, inferior fields. You will also have programs in masters all the way to PhD. So your next step could be here. You say amen. Yeah, if you have the ambition to be able to do that. But if you are not derailed, because today life is quite challenging. We have young people, we have multiple things you want to do. But please, stick to your lane. Stick to your lane to the end. So we want to thank you also the student from different places, their leaders, the head teachers if they're there, the teachers, all of them want to welcome you to Nairobi campus. But as we talk about democracy again, I think the MC alluded to that. Democracy is a challenge in Africa. 60 years for most of this country since we got independence. We are having coup, we are having wars in government, we are having disagreement, we have all these things. 60 years. We've not learned anything. as panelists come, you really need to answer the question why we have not have what we call proper democracy in Africa. We get all these promises from our politicians. Every time there is election, we'll have a democratic government. We'll have a democratic government. Wait until they get to power. Then you hear stories. Greed for power, selfishness, rat grabbing. Yeah? Nowadays they also talk about poaching. The party you go to parliament with is not the party you end up with. You are poached to another party. Not because that party is very good, but because you're also looking for something in your pocket. And the bigger the something, the quicker you move. You know? Across Africa, of course, we have people who are genuine, our MPs, some of them are genuine, and our leaders, some of them are genuine, but the future generation must learn the values that will make us to become democratic continent. Not just Africa, but also globally. A continent that will not be swayed by the Western powers, whereby democracy has become like a carrot stick. If you do this, then we'll give you funds. If you do this, we'll give you food. Democracy should not be a carrot or a stick that will push you to whatever. Democracy should be rooted in our values, such that when you wake up you think democracy. When you go to class, you think democracy. It's not nepotism. It's not tribalism. So, we are looking for selfless leaders. And panelists, please help us to change the mindset. Help us to change the narrative, such that we'll not be saying, Kitaturamba. We'll be saying, this is the way to go. Karibu Nairobi, thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Principal Professor Mureithi. He has passionately talked about, very sticky issues in our democracy as Kenya and Africa. I'll pick two. Kenya, the whole issue that he said about poaching. We need to unpack all these issues, and I'm glad the Honorable Beatrice Elachi is here. Will help us once they sit in the panel. What does it mean? Or why would somebody elected in one political party espouse the issues of another political party that didn't take them to parliament? Is that a peculiar habit for Kenya alone? We need to discuss that and see. In Africa, if you read the stories and if you listen to the stories, Gabon and Niger coups happened because the people, and of course, the military is also part of the people, were not satisfied with the results of the elections as it were, okay? And the way the countries were being run. So the military goes and organizes a coup, and it is successful. We need to unpack and discuss if the people back the military, is that democracy? Because the military is a military. But when they wakipindua serikali na watu wanawasupport, like it is happening in Niger and Gabon, what do we call that? But let me call Franklin Mukwanja, who is the Executive Director of CMD Kenya, the conveners of this beautiful function among other organizations. He will name them, recognize them, and then move on to call the speaker to give us keynote address. Karibu Frank.
Thank you, Papi, the PS, Honorable Geoffrey Kaituko, the management of Daystar University led by Professor Mureithi, and my younger brother, the student leader, Tum, the faculty members, development partners who are here present from Denmark. I have seen UN Women, French Embassy, the Embassy of Netherlands, and Norway will be joining us shortly, who are our partners, political and civic actors, representatives who are present here, our Honorable Member of Parliament, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, who's not just the Member of Parliament for Dagoretti North, but proud to pronounce her as a serious party builder and a consistent leader in terms of our democratic development, teachers and students from other higher learning institutions and secondary schools. I will not make any mistake to refer to them as secondary schools. We have Alliance High School, we have Buruburu Girls, we have Kompwera Mangu, and we also have Dandora High School. Thank you, Daystar, for accepting to host us. We really appreciate this partnership because as an organization, a Center for Multi-Party Democracy, our commitment is to building the capacity of young people, not just for tomorrow, but today. Our country is in a moral crisis. The only way to sort out our leadership challenges is that we have to build a populace that has a set of values that respects and adheres to the rule of law as the taproot of good governance, so that the mere issues of, the basic ones in our democratic practice, like voter bribery, distorting the social contract during election times, during campaign times, we can deal with those things. We strongly believe that solid young people will be able to offer leadership today and secure our country for tomorrow. So it's indeed an honor to partner with not just our development partners, but an institution like Daystar, so that we can begin to focus on these challenges today and develop solutions for our country. Because if we don't do that, then we don't have a home to be proud of. We have to do so consistently because if you look at the anti-democratic forces world over, they are working in very high solidarity. Just a few days ago, I think about 48 hours ago, some leader braved a journey of several hundreds of kilometers via train to meet another leader in another jurisdiction. The alliance of the unholy is very solid. The solidarity can only be countered by pro-democracy promoters and organizations like CMD, institutions like Daystar, development partners, and government representatives like Honorable Kaituko, who are willing to come into this space and have conversations on these issues, are the democratic promoters that we must work together to solidify our course and ensure that we can be able to counter the challenges that the anti-democratic forces are putting before us. Young people, this country is ours. And as long as it is ours today and tomorrow, there are several challenges that we need to develop the capacity, we need to develop our skills, we need to make sure that we have the energy and the consistency to address them. One of those is our transactional nature of politics. Professor Mreithi has decried the issue of poaching. When I was going through the ranks in my young career, we loved the idea of being headhunted, all right? And it feels nice when a competitor is headhunting you, all right? And even when we were in high school, some schools were very particular that they would poach good students who are talented in sports and other, ways to go to their schools so that they can have a good footprint on the national scale. But politics is different. The values, the philosophies, the principles that inform where we stand and why we stand there cannot be wished away overnight. But we have made it very easy for the politicians to be here today and be there tomorrow, because at the time of the campaigns, you are a proud wearer of a red t-shirt, an orange t-shirt, a blue t-shirt, so that you fit in any context and environment for something small. It is not possible, and we cannot have a moral authority then to challenge the behavior of our leaders. But when we actually brave to stand before a mirror, we can see the Kenyan problem squarely in that mirror before us. If you are looking for a Kenyan problem, go this evening, dress in your Sunday best, look very nice, make sure you have your favorite meal, and stand in front of a mirror. You will see the Kenyan problem right inside that mirror. If you can solve that problem, definitely we will be improving our country. So we must be able to deal with the transactional nature of our politics and shift and make our political leaders particularly comfortable to come into our space and have a conversation with us without a cost. If you were to ask Honorable Beatrice Elachi, and she was honest with us, doing a single round in her constituency costs her a good amount. Because after speaking and pronouncing policy and saying what she's doing, the very good Kenyans then say, now, unatuacha namna gani? Hebu tupange. Ama kitaturamba, usipotupanga. All right? So the young people must look at this issue of how do we focus on the issues? How do we make our politics more issue-based and less transactional? So that we don't have a conversation between the leader of what are you going to offer us now, but what are your agenda? What is your agenda when we give you this position to serve us? Because we generally agree on the societal challenges. So politicians must be allowed to disagree on the various propositions on how to tackle these challenges, so that we can pick the best option out of. How do we then get to know the best option if the conversation always stops at mheshimiwa simama tu namna hii niangalie ni nini iko kwa mfuko yako? Secondly, democracy cannot just be about elections. And that is why CMD, we are very consistent about keeping us engaged on these issues. It cannot be about you just registering as a voter and turning out to vote for the politician who gave you something more. I was listening to a gentleman this morning, and it was very clear that some Kenyan voters are worse than commercial sex workers. Right? Because commercial sex workers have a value every day. They serve their clients, wanangara, wanarudi soko. Are we together? But for a voter, the most you get in a campaign could be 1,000 shillings. So you auction your country for 1,000 shillings. And you call yourself better? I think we must respect commercial sex workers because they are cleverer at their price, at their intention, and how to maintain the value in the market. We must look at that and make sure that we are engaging. Public participation in this country is not happening because if government does not have money, Kenyans will not turn up to input in critical processes. If you happen to go to those public participation opportunities, you find our grandmothers there. And you don't find the people that deserve the services, that the government is designing interventions for them. We are making it difficult for ourselves. The third issue is Tech for Democracy. In our generation of the early 40s, we didn't have these privileges that you are enjoying virtual classes and all this tech, and we even have this meeting online already. How do we make sure that we are tackling the mis and disinformation to make sure that we are not part of those that are promoting negative vibes that are affecting our democracy? Young people have a huge responsibility as policymakers engage tech corporates to make sure that there are measures to address those challenges. How are the consumers of these social media platforms, of these digital technologies, making sure that they are not part of the problem, but part of the solution? Finally, I know and I work with parties. Young people are being very responsive to ideas of populism because probably political parties are not fashioning up to, contemporary problems. These are issues affecting young people. If we're talking about climate change, how are political parties developing policies and developing positions that young people can look into and say, we want to pick these political parties over the next because of the issues that they prefer? We cannot just continue relying on the political parties alone to do this. Find time, volunteer to be able to input these ideas so that instead of falling to populism, you are able to support political parties that are in existence and also contribute possibly to the formation of even better political parties that really address these contemporary challenges, and we need solutions to these challenges. So I really want to appreciate Daystar University, appreciate our chief guest, and our Member of Parliament, and the other leaders that have accepted to be part of this conversation. We are going to have these speeches, we are going to have debates, we are going to have a panel discussion. We have Dr. Wakene with a very interesting research that she will briefly delve into to demonstrate some of the challenges that we are suffering from and how do we then develop some solutions to it. This is your conversation. Please feel free to be able to communicate. I want to ask the moderators as well to give us much more time to the audience as possible so that we can all have an opportunity to express ourselves. With those very many remarks, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Honorable Geoffrey Kaituko, who is the PS for Skills and Development and Labor, to deliver his keynote address. Thank you very much. Please, let's applaud him as he comes to speak to us. You know, public speaking is not easy. Please encourage the PS to come here with a lot of energy. Thank you. Sande sana.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Frank. The Honorable Bitu Zelachi, Member of Parliament for Dagoretti North, the Principal of Daystar, Valley Road Campus, event organizers, our host today, all participants. I see high school students and also university students in this congregation. And I am told you're from different institutions within Kenya. The other political and civic leaders present this afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Before I read my official remarks, let me say how much delighted I am to be here this afternoon. For the longest time, Frank has tried to ask me to come, but I wasn't able to get time. Fortunately, this event has happened at a time when I was around, and therefore I informed him in good time that I was going to come. because we also have to show that those in government can come and engage with the citizenry. I am happy to see Honorable Elachi, who I have a bit of background with. I met her when she was senator. At that time, I was speaker. She will later become speaker, like me, but at the Nairobi County Assembly. And when you're a speaker, you're actually a custodian of democracy. So Honorable Elachi and I have been custodians of democracy in our other life. But she's also gone on to win an elected seat in her own right. And I really want us to clap for her. Let's congratulate her with a big clap. There are two kinds of generations in this room. There are those who lived before the current constitution, that is under the old constitution, like myself and Frank. And there are a majority of you here who are fortunate to be alive during this constitution, the one that we have of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Under the old constitution, peers like myself will never appear in this kind of event. By evening, you'll be gone. All right? So the constitution is good, that peers can also come and engage in the celebration of 10 years without fearing that there will be other repercussions. But there is a thin line, though, which I'm going to observe, because I'm now in the executive arm of government, and there's the legislative arm that does oversight. One of the things about being in labor is that you are confronted with one of the biggest challenges of the time, and that is the high unemployment rate among the youth. When I got appointed into this position, you'll allow me to say, a friend of mine called me and said, congratulations. I'm just happy that in your docket you'll be dealing with youth. And I told him, thank you, because I have a skills development component. At that point, I didn't understand what it meant. But for those of you, especially in academia, research has shown that the high unemployment rate in this country, I am not saying this to scare you, our young people, the high unemployment rate is very high between 19 years of age and 24. Because at that point, you are either fresh out of school, and in which case you either go, so you don't have any skills. Number two, you have no access to capital. And therefore you have a choice either to pursue a path to skills development by going to university, by going to a TVET, or pursue an entrepreneurship path. And therefore, then meaning you will need to get access to capital for you to build your business. This is our reality. But as leaders, it is a reality we must confront. It is a reality we are dealing with every day. And I know when there's time and space, we can engage on what probably we are doing in government, and also what the elected leaders are doing in their role of oversight and lawmaking. In government, we are all in government, but there are different roles. There are those who set policy in the executive, but that is shaped in the legislature by the elected representatives of the people. And there are those who interpret, and that particular group sits in the judiciary. And so what will be your role as a citizen, a young citizen? Your role, of course, is to participate in processes of governance, whether they are from the executive wing of government or the legislative wing. I don't think there is much on the judicial wing, except if you file a case in a court of law. But I also see these days that they have judiciary days, open days. So you can actually participate in those days. I know some of you who are in high school will probably be contemplating careers in different arms of government, and that is very good, it's very noble, because one of the highest callings is really to serve your nation as a leader in any capacity. It may be in an appointed capacity or in an elected capacity. So we have a duty. For me, I'll just say that our biggest challenge, apart from unemployment, is the implementation of the new Constitution of 2010. If we are honest with each other as Kenyans, we will put all our energies towards ensuring that the provisions that are in that Constitution, provisions which have been hailed as some of the most progressive in the world, are implemented. And the implementers are our leaders, either in the executive arm of government or in the legislative branch. And how is that done? Of course, it's by holding us to account regularly. I want to say that unlike previous generations, the modern citizen, Kenyan citizen, is very enlightened in all ways, thanks to advances in democracy and also thanks to technology. I cannot keep up with them, even my own children. The young people of today are well ahead of us, their parents, in very many ways. Sometimes we play catch up. What does that tell us? It means that, and especially in this era of AI, it means that we are dealing with people who know what needs to be done. And so for those of us in leadership and in formal roles, both appointed and elected, we have a duty of ensuring that we do what's right. We do what is right. And finally, before I read my speech, in the year 2019, I was invited by my alma mater, the university where I did a master's program in the US. My master's was in public policy, and that is Western Michigan University, on a Ford Fellowship. So they said, now we want you to come. We are awarding you the Outstanding Alumni Award for 2019. When I was a student there, I was the president of African Students Association. I'd always been involved in student leadership, like the young president who was here, Tum. And coincidentally, he shares a name with a gentleman who I took over from. I'll ask him later whether there is a connection between the two of them. So, but this is not the point. The point is that when I went back there, I gave a lecture. And those Americans, one of them stood up and asked me, oh, now, Geoffrey, you've done very well. What are you doing to build young leaders so that they can also rise and become leaders like yourself or better? Well, my response, my knee-jerk response was that I've always been into mentorship. I've been working with young people, especially those who come under my wings. But then that question remained at the back of my mind. And I engaged a few friends of mine exactly just to know what will be the best way for me to impart what I know to young people. because I've been very many things, and I'm at a point in life where, as a leader, I have to give back to society. And so an idea came up, and it came up through a gentleman I had met previously, and he told me, Geoffrey, what you need to do is put your experiences in a book. And so in 2021, I started writing a book. And then I finished before elections. Then because of the transition, it came out, a few people read it. And that book is the one that I have here. It's Getting Things Done. For those of you who are interested, it'll be good to go through. It has my leadership philosophy, the experiences I have had over time. I see you want to get a photo. It's called Getting Things Done. It is in Nuria Bookshop. It's about 315 pages, not big. It's also available on Amazon. So when you read this book, you will read my experiences and also philosophy when it comes to public leadership and life in general. So having said that, allow me, with humility, to read the notes I had prepared for today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the International Day of Democracy is an annual day that has been running for 10 years and is for the purpose of reviewing the state of democracy in the world, upholding and promoting democracy and its principles. I want to thank the Center for Multi-Party Democracy and Daystar University for jointly working together to convene Kenyans from different spheres of the society to raise awareness of democracy through discussions and debates. I am indeed honored to have been invited to be part of this important day, especially noting the relevance of this year's theme, which is empowering the next generation. The theme focuses on young people's essential role in advancing democracy and ensuring that their voices are included in the decisions that have a profound impact on their world, now and in the future. Kenya's current administration, also known as the Kenya Kwanza administration, that is coincidentally marking its first year in office today, places a high premium on young people as custodians of both the current and the future of Kenya's democracy and shared economic and social prosperity. Under the able leadership of His Excellency President Dr. William Ruto, the 5 key priorities of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, better, namely agriculture, revamping medium, small and micro enterprises, affordable housing, the digital and creative economy, and health, or rather universal health, are targeted at ensuring that the prosperity of the next generation of Kenyans. To succeed in this agenda, we as public servants acknowledge that creating an environment in which young people are convinced that their voice counts is crucial. For young people to navigate a world in which democracies are under threat, from factors ranging from the proliferation of online mis- and disinformation to rising populism and the destabilizing effects of the climate crisis, it is important that we as enablers and facilitators of service delivery ensure that citizens, especially young people, are able to meaningfully participate in the decisions that affect their lives today and in the years to come. As government, we recognize the importance of empowering young people to take leadership roles on issues of international importance. The Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, and in particular the State Department for Labor and Skills Development, under this ministry, is currently implementing several programs aimed at empowering the next generation of Kenyans. Namely, 1, expansion and enhancement of skills development programs such as industrial training, the National Internship Program, the Apprenticeship Program, the National Online Work Readiness Skills Training Mentorship Program through Ajira Digital. 2 is the implementation of the National Volunteerism Program called the G Unite. 3 is the National Productivity Improvement Program, which promotes productivity management to enhance the country's economic growth and competitiveness. 4 are youth employment initiatives aimed at reducing the youth unemployment. 5 is labor market integration and provision of labor market information through Kenya Youth Employment and Opportunities Program. 6, development of the national policy on labor migration and the Labor Migration Management Bill 2023 to streamline labor migration so as to enhance access to quality jobs abroad and strengthen protection of Kenyan migrant workers. So what is the relationship between skills development and democracy? Skills development is one of the strategies for empowering youth to participate in economic, social, and political affairs of our country. An empowered population, especially youth, is an important ingredient for a vibrant democracy. An economically empowered citizenry is able to advance their secondary rights, such as voting rights. Skills development can empower the youth with advocacy skills which they can use to call for their political rights. An engaged, well-educated electorate is at the heart of strong democratic societies. For instance, pursuance of Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya on economic and social rights can be better advanced where the electorate are keen to engage those seeking leadership on issues of development as opposed to electoral vices and manipulations such as voter bribery. You know, all corruption is derived from voter bribery. Because when you buy votes, you will want to get back your money. And so you become a tenderpreneur. You look for opportunities to make money quickly before the next election. And that is something that we really must, as a country, fight. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I want to particularly urge the youth who are present here today to take it upon themselves to not only participate in, but also protect our democracy as a country. This is a key pillar of our national development agenda, which continues to guarantee fairness, freedoms, and active participation by all. I thank you for listening, and God bless you all. Others, thank you very much. It's good to see you all. I think the panelists will bring out the issues which are there. And I look forward to engaging with you beyond this forum. Asanteni sana na Mungu awabariki.
Let's give Mheshimiwa Geoffrey a big round of applause. Frank. Hauna yangu. Yangu pia iko. All right, makofi kwao tafadhali. All right, we are moving on swiftly, so there's nothing to add on that. We should have had entertainment break, but we are pressed for time. So I beg that we just proceed with the panel discussion so that the guest of honor might catch part of it before probably he leaves. So at this juncture, I want to call upon another young person whom I've known now for, is it 3 or 4 years? 3 years, I think. I want to call Thorn Barasa, who is from Strathmore Law School. He will be the moderator of the next session, and he will have the opportunity to call his panelists who will join him up on the podium. So Thorn, karibu sana. If you have to know, Thorn is an alumnus of the Alliance High School. Mpigeni makofi. Karibu sana Thorn, and you can take over.
All the political parties present, all dignitaries, the PS, the executive director of CMD, all schools, all teachers, all students, all protocol observed. Good afternoon. Now, before I call on the panelists, I would like to say a few things. Democracy will not come today, this year, nor ever, through compromise or fear. I have as much right as the other fellow has to stand on my 2 feet without plight and on the land. I tire to hear people say, let things take their course, for tomorrow is another day. But I do not need my freedom when I'm dead, for I cannot live on tomorrow's bread. Therefore, freedom is a strong seed planted by a nation with great need, not to a chosen few, not to some aristocracy. It belongs to all of us, the seed of democracy. Once again, my name is Thorn Barasa, and Papi has already said it, and I think, let me start from this. I went to Alliance, so I have to mention, I definitely have to mention. Yeah, my name is Thorn Barasa. I am a student of law at Strathmore University, and I will be your moderator for the day. So without further ado, I would like to call the speakers of the day. First of all, I would like to call Senior Lecturer, Department of Peace and International Studies at Daystar University, Dr. Weston Shilaho. A round of applause, please. Karibu. I would also like to call the advocate for, yeah, we can have a seat. I'd like to also call the advocate, Inter-Party Youth Forum, Gashui Kariuki. A round of applause. Advocate for Peace, Security, and Biodiversity, Jeremy Atambo. Please, round of applause. And last but certainly not least, one with a very, very big reputation, our own leader, MP Dagoretti North, Honorable Beatrice Elachi. Round of applause. Karibuni sana. So I would like to formally invite you to the panel discussion, and we're gonna have the discussion especially back on the theme, empowering the next generation. Our theme has been set out by the UN for the International Day of Democracy, is Nurturing Flourishing Democracies. So I want us to have this conversation. What exactly is a flourishing democracy? What exactly is a democracy? And keeping in mind how best are the policies that are there, how best are the institutions that are there, and how much of engaged citizenship do we have to make sure our democracies are flourishing. And the way we're gonna have this discussion is this way. So I'm gonna have 2 sets of questions. I have substantive questions and quick fire questions. These are to the panelists. The substantive questions are questions that have a little bit more weight. It's a bit technical kidogo, and we want them to explain. whatever it is that is in the question. The quick fire questions are very short, but very, very specific, so that we call a spade and not a big spoon, right? Because, well, democracy is, it's many things. People say democracy is there. People say democracy isn't there. We always talk about democratic states, democratic governments, but what exactly is that? And each speaker will have 5 minutes to answer their questions. Upon which, after we're done, I will now pass the floor, I'll now pass the microphone to the floor. And I'd like to have you ask the speakers questions. Or if you want to ask me a question, it's also okay. We can also have you ask the speakers the questions to essentially understand what it takes for us to have a flourishing democracy. Any objections? Going once, going twice? All right, so it is my singular pleasure to formally declare the panel discussion open. Nice, thank you very much. I will have the first question going to Honorable Beatrice Elachi. And let's talk about representative democracy. So what exactly is representative democracy, and how effective, inclusive, and viable is it in Kenya, and how exactly does it hope to achieve the goals of democracy? So what is representative democracy, how effective, how viable is it, and how does it hope to achieve the goals of democracy? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Baraza, and once again, good afternoon all. First, to really appreciate our peers and CMD, our sisters from the Swedish Embassy. Welcome. I know you'll learn a lot today as interns from Sweden, but here, our Danish representative, and the fraternity of Daystar. We just want to thank you for giving us that opportunity to engage in this conversation on democracies, and more importantly, in representation. And maybe I'll start a bit wider as I come closer. That I'll say in Kenya, it depends with your democracy. Because if we go in the books of democracy that governs the people, that the people are the ones who ensure you're governed, or you tell your leaders how to be governed, then I think we will find it very difficult in describing, because a child in Mathare will describe democracy so differently with a child that lives in Lavington. So that is how challenging it is today. That in the days when we started this word democracy, it was a word that you'll really appreciate, that indeed there's a government that needs to govern, and the people have power to bring in this government for their own representation. But then time has come, and I think more closer, I think when COVID hit us, we are like, we've gone back to realism than more of democracy, because each country now has become so self-defensive. They would wish to see their things. They are very unitary, and so that state is no longer communicating democracy, but it's sort of surviving. And that's why you find many people, and we have different words. That's why mtasema kitawaramba, kitaturamba. It's because of the challenges now we face. So now let's come to the real representation that we have, especially in our country, Kenya. In Kenya today, when you look at how we represent you, so we say, by the book, we are supposed to represent, to oversight, and to legislate, by the book. But then, because of the challenges and how we have created this model, it seems that after I have done all that, the most important thing that every mwananchi in Kenya will be looking at is now, have you done welfare? So the question will be, what is this that we have done wrong as leaders, that until our citizens do not believe in all these other things, will never believe in the laws that I bring in, will never believe in the development that I'll be doing, but will believe me if I sustain them more on welfare. So it means there's a disconnect between the institutions and the citizens in how we do development in our countries. So one of the things that we need to amend back is how do you ensure development moves with your citizens, that your citizens will appreciate the institutions that are there to create democracies that we are talking about are functional, but more importantly, deliver to the citizens. And delivering to those citizens, it's not just the institution, it is me, it is anyone, any Kenyan, given responsibility to work anywhere. And so there's nothing called blame game. Blame game is me, is Baraza, who I've been given an opportunity to serve in this position. I must deliver what I have to do. And someone else who is a civil servant, who is seated in an office somewhere, must be delivering. The same way a teacher is delivering to ensure the students will learn, but more importantly, pass. The same thing. So as Kenyans, as we do that blame game and call it democracy, you need to be asking yourself, in my space, what have I done to build my democracy? As a farmer, have I done what it's supposed to do to build that democracy, to feel that I govern myself and I'm able to stand and say, I have now done this, and now government, as you tax me, I am taxed knowing very well I have performed my duties. So that's how simple it is, but how tough it is. And I know many will think we'll go in the book. No, we have to change from the book. We must bring it in practical. So in practical, when you want to enjoy democracy, then it starts with you being responsible as a citizen for you to enjoy that democracy.
Thank you very much. We've talked about how to be governed, we've talked about responsibility of the citizens, and we've also talked about delivery. And essentially that is what is supposed to drive us to realizing the goals of democracy, right?
Yes, and as we realize that, then the government, now you're able to check that government. It doesn't matter who is at the presidency. What matters at that presidency is he able, he or she, to deliver to the citizens what we promise, what they promised, but in the end of the day, it starts with us, it goes to them, it comes back when it's better, and that's when you'll see transformation of what you always yearn to see, a better country, a country that you can walk in any office and get what you want, a country that you're able to just go online and see transparently, this is what I can apply for a job, this is what I can get, without going to know, do I know Mheshimiwa, do I know the PS, do I know the CS?
Thank you very, very much. At this juncture, allow me to invite one more person to the panel. Dr. Sylvia Wakene, please, I would like to invite you to the panel. Thank you very much. Round of applause, everyone. I understand you will have time to make your presentation as well, but we would be more than delighted to have you on the panel. Let me ask the next question to Ms. Gashui Kariuki. Under the motto, Unity in Diversity, we had the inception of the Inter-Party Youth Forum, to which you're an advocate. And one of the primary issues identified in your report dating back to 2012 is, despite our very, very huge numbers, like as youth demographically, young people are left out of political processes. And we have very little or no say in governance because, well, it is left for the powers that be. But then again, it's been 11 years since that report. And one might argue the situation hasn't changed. I mean, let's take away this forum, for example. How else would we have come here as youth to talk about democracy? So the question is, why is this? Are the youth the problem? Are we the ones who don't want to be involved? Or is the sad system the problem?
Thank you, Baraza. My name is Gashi Kariuki. I am an advocate of the High Court, and then I head programs at the Interparties Youth Forum. And if you'd allow me for just 1 minute, I would like to introduce my members who have come here with me today. So Viongozi, if you're here, please stand up so I can introduce you quickly. Thank you very much. That is Gabrielle Lorera. She's the youth leader from Upya Party. That is Abija Swale from PA. Miss Ashley Cheriot from DAP Kenya. I believe my brother from UDA is somewhere here, but I cannot see him. His name is Ngetich Kiprotich. He's somewhere around here. Anyway, back to, I can see my, I can see my brother Kevin Waweru from KUP at the back. Thank you very much, Viongozi.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So as the Interparties Youth Forum, we are basically an entity that has come together to bring youth leaders from all political parties in Kenya and create a platform that is neutral, where young people can be able to deliberate on issues and speak to power, be it the government, be it the opposition, in one unified and neutral voice. Now, when we talk about young people and inclusion in governance, I would say that the reason why we are predominantly left out of decision-making and representation at the table is in two levels. One, we are partly to blame, and two, there are systemic challenges that have been planted deliberately to ensure that young people are not able to get to the very front. I will begin with the young people. So as young people, we know that we have a constitution, a robust constitution that talks about inclusion, that talks about democracy being a foundational value of who we are as a country. Article 100 of our constitution talks about young people being a special interest group that must be represented at both elective and appointive roles in governance and in presentation. But how often do we young people follow up on some of these issues? In fact, I will go as far as pose the question right now. Do we know who are our youth reps in the National Assembly? Who represent us? Who represent the youth constituency in Parliament? At the Senate? Okay. So at the National Assembly, we have two. One lady called, I think her name is Umul Kera Harun Mohammed from ODM. We have Tesia Wanjiru from UDA. At the Senate level, we have Rafael Chimera from UDA and Hezina Lemeletian from ODM. Have you seen what that small example I've given? We never pay attention to what we have been given already, okay? Those are de facto positions, but none of us ever follows up on some of these things. Right now, we have the national dialogue, the ongoing national dialogue. We have representatives from both sides of Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. We have women, we have men, but how many of those are below the ages of 35? None. You see, so partly we are to blame for not being included on that table because we do not pay enough attention, or we are not, we're not driven enough to understand that we do have a role to play. It's not just positions be given to us on tokenism, just because we have opportunities enshrined in our constitution. But we need to be very vigilant and understand that we need to be on that table to make decisions, not just for ourselves, but even the youth who will come after us. And in that way, we are able to empower generations that come after us. Now, when we talk about systemic challenges that are deliberately put in place, you'll find that, for instance, to vie for Member of Parliament, you'd need probably about 20 million shillings to campaign. How many young people are able to raise that on a whim to, run for office? It's not that easy. Sometimes we also find ourselves in a situation where decisions are made in certain environments, certain scenarios where young people are deliberately excluded. So for instance, wazee watapatana mahali, wazee hukaa, wanakunywa pombe yao, wanaongea mambo yao, wanakula mbuzi yao. You will not see young people there, you will not see women there, you will not see persons with disability there, but somehow at the end of the day, wanakuja wanakwambia, sasa tumekaa, na tumeona na tumesema hivi ndivyo tutaenda, these are the issues we are going to address. Like the National Dialogue Forum, again, there are certain issues they have presented, 5 issues that are going to be addressed at the dialogue committee being held at Bomas of Kenya. How were those issues deliberated on? How many young people were involved in making the decisions that these are the 5 issues we are going to be addressing? For young people, we are only being invited at public fora, various public fora. Sasa kujeni mutupatie maoni yenu kwa public participation, tutaona kama tutakubali ama we will decide. So 2 levels of why we are excluded at the decision-making level is partly we are not vigilant, but also systemic challenges that are deliberately put in place to keep us off the table.
You mentioned the issue of public participation, yeah?
Yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, public participation is, in as much as you present your opinions,
Yeah.
The legislative processes, we may decide to take it or not to take it. It's
Precisely.
just as an institution there.
Yes, it's a compliance issue sometimes.
Yeah, so why should it be there then, especially for the youth? Do we need to be there for public participation? Sorry, do we need to be there only during public participation? Or should we be the ones who are vigilant enough to take those positions for ourselves?
We should be vigilant enough to take those positions for ourselves. Public participation is a core value, not just of democracy, but even a national value for us as Kenyans and enshrined in our constitution. It is very important for us to always be deliberately involved in discourse regarding governance from the very ward level in public barazas, chief barazas, all the way up to the national dialogue and national level. It is important. And in as much as, to a certain extent, we have demonstrated, or our leaders have demonstrated, that public participation is just a compliance issue so that you guys don't take us through public interest litigation. It is very important. It is used as a determinant to ensure that people are able to determine and make decisions for themselves.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn to Dr. Weston. And I should believe as in line with your profession, as a professor of international studies, I should believe relationalist democracies is where the government and the people cooperate for the well-being of the people, yeah? So can we say the same for our democratic system? Is our democratic system relationalist? And in the event that we actually have collaboration, is it for the benefit of the people or for the benefit of those coming to the people?
Thank you so much. First, before I respond to your question, I wish to dispense with the question that Professor Muriithi asked. Why don't we have proper democracy in Africa? Well, proper in itself is ambiguous. You wouldn't know what constitutes proper democracy. What is in Uganda clearly differs from what is in Rwanda across the border. What's in Kenya clearly differs from what is in Tanzania across the border. And you can go on and on and on. And there are as many responses to your question as there are political systems in Africa and across the world. But one thing I can say for sure is that the African continent has made tremendous strides as far as democracy is concerned. In fact, if you look at even the recent coups in the Sahel, Niger, Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, the other day in Gabon, and we don't know where next. Those coups are in themselves democratic. If you look at democracy as a system that affirms justice, because Baby Bongo, for that's what I call him, he's been released from house arrest, he's free to travel abroad for treatment. The former president in Niger was in house arrest. If you go back to the 1960s, coups were bloodier, extremely bloody. In fact, the first thing the coup plotters did was to look for the head of state and look for the head of state. So much so that in countries like Nigeria, one of their founding fathers, Sir Abubakar Balewa, was killed in a coup. Then there was a rematch coup in 1966, which claimed the life of a military leader by the name Johnson Agui Ronsi, and many other civilian leaders and military leaders. In Ghana, when J.J. Rawlings took over in 1979, what he did was to round up former civilian leaders in Ghana, as well as military leaders, and had all of them shot dead. You know, you can go to Liberia, very bloody. So we are democratic, even in the coups that are taking place. But what I can tell you is that there are challenges. Our politics is still personality-centered, particularly if you look at Kenya. From Monday to Friday, from January to December, Kenyans discuss personalities. What Raila Odinga said, what William Ruto said, what they did not say, as opposed to issues that affect their lives. That is our challenge. And that's why there's intense polarization in Kenya. You either oppose the government or you support it. There's no middle ground, you know? So that in itself works against democracy. So there are challenges, intolerance to dissent, and those kind of things. Synchro narratives, and fundamentally, it is the question of two nations. We have two nations in Kenya. What does it mean? We have got the poor and the rich. And this is not new. Benjamin Disraeli, the British statesman, talked about it when he was the prime minister, about two nations in British society, the poor and the rich. And that created antagonism. Thabo Mbeki also talked about two economies in South Africa, which created antagonism, violence, and political instability. Here in Kenya, the last elections were about dynasties and hustlers. Those are two nations. To the question from the moderator, I would begin by saying that, which also goes to young people who are seated here. Chile in Latin America, yesterday, they celebrated 50 years since a very bloody coup that brought in power General Augusto Pinochet and had the first democratically elected president, Salvador Allende, toppled and killed, apparently with the connivance of CIA. Gabriel Boric, the Chilean president, who is I think 36 now, because when he was elected he was 35, said something very fundamental, that the solution to the problems of democracy is more democracy. If people are protesting, you give them more democracy, more rights, not less, not constriction. Relation to democracy, a moderator, I think it's a neologism. I looked at it and I think it's the first time I came across this concept. But I will make some justice about it. I would say that democracy is about the centrality of the people. So if you don't know what democracy is, but you see any kind of political system where the people are at the center, governance, institutions, the policies that are made are all geared towards bettering the living standards of the people, that's a democracy. And what renders this system of governance functional? It's a contractual relationship. You're talking about collaboration. I don't know, we can collaborate with you, but when we collaborate and things don't work out, well, we can say we didn't do our utmost best. Let's try again. I don't think the citizenry relate to the government in that kind of arrangement. This is a contractual relationship. We're going to do A, B, C, and D, and in return we expect certain things. So the people will forego their right to govern themselves individually and vote for a government. And by so doing, they promise to accord that government allegiance and obey the constitution and the rules and pay taxes. Of course, in Kenya, that's very problematic. In return, they expect public goods. They expect the rule of law. They expect economic development. They expect nation building, all those things. Security in all its manifestations. And development is not about we becoming like the West. Nope. It's about having our own model that improves our people's lives, and that there will be sanction. If the government fails to deliver on these promises, their mandate about security, health, the basic needs, water, education, the people have a right to sanction them, as in they will vote them out come next elections. But it's not just about we wait for you until next elections. They can also pile pressure on the government and even rise up in terms of popular uprising. That's provided for in a democracy. So I look at it in terms of a contractual, reciprocal relationship, as opposed to how it's framed here, collaborative. And therefore, the only price to pay for democracy is eternal vigilance, that the citizenry will remain vigilant at all times, because all governments and politicians are inherently mischievous. And if they're not held to account, and if they cannot predict the consequences of their rogue behavior, they cannot act in the best interest of the people. So I think I try to disambiguate your question, and I think that's my reading about it. Thank you.
Okay, just to follow up, you said it is not collaborative, it's contractual, it's a contract, yeah? In the sense that it's not me and you coming together to do something, it's me giving up something for you to do something for me, yeah? And the youth and the citizens will argue, they've done that already. They've held their end of the contract. Na bado kimewaramba. So where does the buck stop?
Great question, great question. I'm a little bit concerned about this language that includes inclusivity. You know, young people want to be, appointed to certain positions. You see, when you're appointed by the powers that be, all these elderly people who are running these political parties, they appoint you on their own terms. I will challenge the Kenyan youth and the youth who are in this hall that they have got the advantage of the numbers, what they refer to as the youth dividend. That has to be reflected in the democratization. That it can't be that Africa is the youngest continent and it has got geriatrics as leaders. Don't get me wrong. I don't reduce leadership to age. If it's about age, it's the age of ideas. So if you're a young person, you've got progressive ideas, transformative ideas, like Boric in Chile, you can rule. But you can also be a young person with fairly anachronistic ideas. You're a racist, you're a tribalist, you're a religious zealot, and those kind of things. I don't think you could help much in terms of transformation. So the youth in Kenya and the youth in this hall could do by borrowing a leaf from their counterparts in Uganda, in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, that they will mobilize, they will organize and contest for political office, not under the political parties owned by certain people. They'll form their own political parties and compete for power, as opposed to sitting back and lamenting, but the Constitution has been breached. You haven't appointed us. No, they will not do that. You have to physically go out and wrestle for power. It's not given on a silver platter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Jeremy, I will come to you next. But before that, I would kindly like to invite Papi to take us through the next part of the session, just before we come back to the panel. Thank you very much.
Sorry to cut this, but Thorn will be coming back. I just want to call back the principal secretary to come, and he has some books to present. And then after that, we will allow him to leave to take care of other assignments and tasks. Karibu sana. Yeah.
I just want to gift the panelists with copies of my book. I'll begin with Honorable Beatrice Elachi. It is my honor to give you this book.
Thank you so much.
And I look forward to reading yours.
Yes, the Chronicles of Nairobi, very soon.
Thank you. I also want to gift Gashui Karuki. All right, no problem. Jeremy Atambo. Dr. Sylvia Wakene. Then there is Dr. Weston Shilao, the controversial gentleman. I have 3 other copies. I want to give Professor Mreithi, the principal, a copy. And then they are the 2 MCs, the Master of Ceremonies. Yes. Here is your copy. And there is the other, the man who went to Alliance. Where is he? I also went to Alliance last year. Because my school is Kabarak, but I went to Alliance last year as a chief guest. Thank you very much. All right. So, asanteni sana. I wish you the best in your deliberations.
Let's take a selfie. This is the beauty of being the MC. But we can also, let's face this side and take a selfie with the whole group. Right. Kila mtu inua kidole juu. All right.
Thank you very much and all the best.
Okay. Let's give a big round of applause to the PS as he leaves. I'll call Thorn back, and we'll continue.
Thank you very much. I said I'll come to Jeremy, and I think the next question speaks either for or against what Dr. Weston just said. Talks about inclusivity and diversity as them being core values of a democratic system. So do you believe that they are core values of a democratic system? And in so doing, contradicting what he just said. And if yes, are the youth included? Should the youth be included? And in what capacity are the youth best fitting?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon once again. My name is Jeremy Atambo. I'm actually a finishing student here at Daystar University, so it's an honor to be in front of all of you. And I think I'm the youngest in this panel, if not, so I should carry the whole of the youth on my shoulders.
Please do.
That question is quite interesting, and I had Daktari speaking about it, and I was just like, I can't wait. Because inclusivity and diversity are indeed core values. I agree, they're core values of any democratic system, as they do 3 things. Firstly, they ensure equal representation of all the citizens or the citizenry. They also ensure active participation of all the citizens, and they also uphold the rights and the civil liberties of these citizens. But I think the problem with the youth in Kenya is, I don't want to say lack of information. Information is there, but it's a key element, because if you do not know where the rain started to beat you, how can you know where to dry? That's Chinua Achebe. And why is this? Because they're not exposed to these democratic processes, or rather they lack this exposure. They have little exposure to these democratic processes. I'll paint a scenario. Imagine a 17-year-old child or an 18-year-old, I don't know if they qualify to be an adult, they're turning 18. This is the ripe age where most of the Kenyan youth finish finish high school and opt into university. They get out of school, they're given an ID, an identification card, and then they can now express themselves politically. They can now vote. So this person is someone who might have not interacted democratically in any position, maybe only to elect the campus governor, the campus president, and they might not value the elements, the principles of democracy. Secondly, because of that, they get out, and now they have a chance to participate in these democratic processes, and they have maybe candidates in mind. And these are their favorite candidates. They might not understand why, because again, they were in school, but they're their favorite candidates. And they go into the election supporting these candidates, and not knowing that there is more to democracy. The other three elements that arise are that these candidates or these students should know that in a democracy, you're allowed to have differing opinions. So they back these candidates with all their hearts, with all their might, and when their candidates or when their chosen candidates are not elected, they gain some resentment. And this can even lead to or be exacerbated to voter apathy, because they do not believe in the system. It has not worked for them. And that's why we should include them. As you know, Kenya has a relatively young population. Of the, I think we're 50-something plus million right now. About 75%, if I'm not wrong, constitute of the youth. And there have been efforts made, I do not disagree, there have been efforts made by the government to promote this inclusivity in different fields, such as politics, such as governance, and also in just general decision making. And some of these efforts can be, for instance, the introduction of the Youth Council from the 2010 Constitution. That is good. There's also the Youth Commission, and there's also the existence of the National Youth Council from the 2010 Constitution as well, which is aimed at addressing these problems that the youth are facing. Now it is up for the youth to get involved. It's up for the government to come up with trainings and drives and campaigns that are aimed towards civic education. It saddens me that in the introduction of the 844 syllabus, they scrapped away civics education. I've grown up not knowing, I'd had to go the extra mile to learn what my MCA does. To learn what's the position of the women rep.
Or who your MCA is.
Exactly. I do not know who my MCA is, which saddens me. You know them when you're voting them in, and then you don't even know what they do. You don't know who's in charge of building roads at what level. These are some of the things where the youth can be involved in. And also the youth in political parties. You cannot expect a youth or a boy or a girl or anyone between the constitutionally recognized age, which is, I guess, from 18 to 35, to participate in these political parties if they do not know what these political parties stand for. What we've seen from countless years is that these political parties are geared towards elections, and that's a sad reality. Some of them do not withstand the test of time. So how do you want a youth to get involved? And I'm not complaining. I know they say the youth, kazi yao ni kucomplain. I'm not complaining. How do you expect the youth to participate in these political parties if these political parties are not backed up by any ideology? It's a question we keep asking. And the youth in elections, now this is where the voter apathy arises. Of the 22 million registered voters, this was actually the highest number of registered voters Kenya's had in a while, and I think 15 years. And then we find out that, is it 13 million the voter turnout was about 13 million. And if you see that difference, which is about 9 million, you see it's the youth that are not turning out to vote because they do not have any belief in the democratic system of our country. You also asked another question is, how can we be involved? What was the second question?
In what capacity are we best fitting in the democratic system?
In what capacity? As a youth. Okay, capacity and roles of the youth in democracy. What I can say is voting, because the youth are the most, and they're also eligible. They're the most capable to vote because they constitute of the numbers. We see that the youth have the capacity to even influence the electoral outcomes. We also see that political participation, that the youth are also encouraged to run for office, to have their voices heard. And I'd encourage anyone here today who's willing to take a political seat, get informed. That's the first step. Get informed. Know what everyone does at every level. I'd also wanted to speak about the university level of elections and the 2016 law that was changed to the delegation system. I think that's something which has really hindered progress when it comes to the democratic scene or the democratic system of a country, simply because in this system, the delegate system, we now are we send out representatives to voice our concerns, and this has led to a lot of vices or a lot of bribery, where now the aspirants would want to get into these seats no matter or regardless, and now they'd seek favors. These delegates will seek favors from the aspirants. They'd want money. This is the case in many public universities, whereby the aspirants would do anything to get into these seats, and now would lead them to going round through the system. Lastly, in civil societies and advocacy, the youth can get involved through the raising of awareness in many groups, such as we've seen Siasa Place here, Taifa Teule, my very own Kamti Voices, where now they provide a platform for the youth to express themselves civilly. And the community engagement, the youth can also get engaged through volunteering, through local governance, and also supporting community development initiatives. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to thank you very much for all you've said. Keeping in mind, you've also talked about the inclusivity, the diversity, and reminded us of what exactly we're supposed to do. And you've talked about being informed, you've talked about the youth going and getting these positions. Kwa hivyo, my only question is, do you want to vie?
Yes, I was actually waiting for that question.
Oh, nice. Unajua umekaa kando ya honorable kinaweza kuramba.
And I'm actually in her constituency.
Oh.
Yes.
Kwa hivyo kitamramba.
Kitamramba.
Sawa. Nyinyi mmesikia, hayo ni mambo yao, watamaliza nao wenyewe. Let me bring this question to Dr. Sylvia. And it's coming back to what Jeremy just said. He's talked about why should the youth take part in governance when the political parties don't have ideologies. The quote-unquote phrases, some ideologies we are used to, NASAO, TBIM, nini zingine ilikuwa inasemwa, Tialala, Hasla, you get. So these are necessarily the ideologies that are driven more or less, in the sense that a political party tries to identify the specific set of people and try to bring in a specific set of ideologies to these specific people. And now, an ideology like Tialala does not help the youth anywhere, or an ideology like, we all remember these ideologies, yeah? Hustler, whatever, they're just phrases, yeah? So what exactly should political parties do going forward to take the youth in? How best should they change their ideologies to make them cognizant with the youth who are now present here and now?
So thank you so much for that question. To begin with, first, when we want to understand what democracy is, I want to approach this from the point of the rule of the people, the demos, kratos, which demos is people, kratos is rule. So people decide and define for themselves how they want to be ruled. And for that reason, therefore, we establish the rules by which we want to be governed and get into a constitution that guides how that procedure should happen. So coming back to your question, therefore, when it comes to political parties, I said that our political parties in Kenya are very personal properties of those that established them. And more so, when we look at the characteristic of those that established them are wealthy personalities that can be able to fund and maintain those political parties, and therefore they have all the say of who runs where and participates how. So who is even the MCA, who is going to be the, who is running in whatever places. So it becomes really a very big challenge, especially for the youth who do not have the wealth and therefore cannot participate with those that have the money. So for this reason, therefore, it becomes very, very challenging for that to have the youth inclusive. So that said, therefore, what do our political parties need to do to run away from them, again, being a vehicle to get to power? And once they get there, these political parties are abandoned at will, provided the destination is already arrived at, and therefore they are ready to be poached, to move from wherever. Then when you also look at our political parties, as you have said, they lack the ideologies. And why they lack ideologies, as we have said, is because of those that establish them are personal properties, they are briefcase parties. And for that reason, therefore, you find even when it comes to ideologies, they don't have them. So they hire technocrats to make for them manifestos. And if therefore I consult a firm to make a manifesto for me, they mirror each other because they are done by technocrats who therefore sit down and they do a beautiful manifesto for party X and Y, Z. So at the end of it all, therefore, you find that, unfortunately, the citizens do not identify with political parties. And why they don't identify is because they don't resonate with what you are and what maybe you believe in. So, and that is why you end up with TLLA and others that are just exciting, campaigns that pull crowds, but really lack the substance in it. And for that reason, therefore, you find that Kenyans or Kenyan citizens rather join popular parties that arise. And now we find that we have even morphed into coalition of parties, being the recent trend under which we run for political office. And because of this, therefore, you find because Kenyans do not belong to political parties, we wait around and for time of elections and our leaders come and dish out monies, come and line up for me during those, nomination times. And you find, therefore, that our names are even, when you find the register of political parties saying that Kenyans find themselves in political parties that they don't even have an idea that they have been forcefully put there without your knowledge. And you remember the last election, we had a number where we would check which party you had been put into. So this is what our politicians do, that they have found a way going round the constitutional requirement that now you can be able to maybe use our, identity cards maybe to have us, seemingly appear that we support those political parties. So what the youth need to do now is that the youth must first refuse to be used for political gains. We find the how now, just like it has been discussed here, is that majority of the youth are used for political violence. We are the ones with the energy running on the streets, destroying property, doing whatever we need to do. So we must run away from this, and we must refuse to do this. And when we refuse to do this, we must, one, hold our leaders to account. Kenyans must move to a position where we must have a checklist. What are they telling us during our political campaigns? They will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are we taking them to account for that? Are we ticking that box every time we come back and ask them, oh, you told us you will do A, B, C, D. Have you done that? Yes, no. So if these leaders don't fulfill that, then don't give them your vote. That is one. As discussed by Atambo, that the youth do not participate. You don't turn up to vote for your leaders. There is a lot of youth apathy, and you're like, oh, nothing will change. And there is a saying that bad leaders are elected by good citizens who do not vote. Bad leaders are elected by good citizens who do not vote. So when you do not vote, you are communicating and you're selling your vote. So that is what we are telling the youth today, that don't sell your future, don't sell your birthright by not turning up, your political right to vote for your leaders, because by doing that, you are electing bad leaders. And that has been the order of the day here in Kenya, that 3 months down the line, you complain and say, oh, government, but you didn't turn up to participate in electing these leaders. So that is one. That is the other thing. That is a second thing. The third thing that the youth need to do, mobilize. You don't have the wealth, but you have the vote. You must start to mobilize yourselves, just like my colleague has said, form a party that is going to, to relate with the youth of this country and mobilize and support each other. That is the greatest asset that you have as young people. Mobilize yourselves, move yourselves together, and that way you'll have a game changer in this country. You can put your leader into power if you want, because you have the majority of the vote. The 75% of the voters in Kenya are young people. But ironically, when you look at the voting patterns last year, is that 55%, when we look at those who vote, are those of the age of 55 years and above. So it means that beneath that, where are these people? Why are they not voting? So that is how you can have a game changer as young people. Thank you.
Bad leaders are elected by good citizens who do not vote. Someone put that in a museum. That's actually very wise. I would like to now pass the microphone to you to ask a couple of questions before we bring the microphone back here for quick fire questions. Very, very quick. They're not necessarily tied to the discussion today. Tunaweza kuuliza ni chapo ngapi unamaliza. So just be prepared for anything. But I would like to have the floor ask a couple of questions, and then we'll bring it back to the panel. All right. I think we'll start anywhere from there. Anywhere, really, yeah. We'll come to you, yeah.
Comrades, power. Viva, comrades, viva. It sounds better than TV. Yeah, so listening to panelists speaking, I can say they are speaking at academic point of view, not really reflecting what happens on the ground, especially from my two youths. So as Beatrice Honorable Elachi is seated here, most of young people might think that alijipata tu yeye ni mweshi. I remember in 2002, when I was volunteering to stick posters for Kibaki along this road, you can actually guess my age. Elachi was, I think, engaging with the CMD, with the likes of Honorable Millie, Njerica Beberi, and the rest. I know she can't remember me. So young people accept to be used by politicians, but know what you want. I have accepted to be used by politicians and have gained. I don't go there for handouts. Be aggressive. It said if a young man knows, or if a young man or woman knows how to wash his or her hands clean, he or she will eat with elders. Know what you want. If you are going for Mwesh for handouts, you will be given handouts. Last year during elections, we were so desperate to have young people coming in to volunteer. Young people were never there. Then, unfortunately, my camp was defeated. But my party leader wrote for me a recommendation letter, and I went to the US, University of Virginia, for a fellowship for 1 year with a monthly stipend of 1,000 USD every month. Nikajengea madhe nyumba. You see? Accept to be used by politicians, but know what you want. Go and find out where your political party office is, your preference one. Volunteer there. Hata kama ni kufagia, we show up. Usikae, ati after people have labored, now you come with a young person's tag, ati I want to be appointed. By who? You will not be appointed. People labor at night during the day. We give our own money. Right now, we are friends with those who are in government, in UDA. Why are we friends? Because we know the sacrifice the other camp put. There was a time even the president, his campaign money was not sufficient. So young people in that side, wanajitolea ati maze prezo, today we'll fuel these cars. You see? Alafu, msana kuja na degree yake, ati you know we are young people from Strathmore Law School, sijui what, appointment. By who? You reap what you sow. And lastly, I want to say, protests are the mother of democracy. I have with me 5 pieces of constitution, 2010 constitution. We'll give few students here. Protests are not illegal. They are enshrined in our constitution. And the democracy we are discussing here today, if it is not for that 2010 constitution, right now we wouldn't be near. Tungekuwa Nyayo House Tota Chamber, tunakuwa tortured. Why are we discussing democracy? So we know we operate in these political spaces. If today we organize a peaceful protest, government will hire goons, give them clothing, attires representing the other side to come and burn cars along Gong Road. We know all these things, so that they paint the other side as so bad and demonic. Young people who are here, right? Professor Ongare Madai said this. A right, these are things that you fight to get, continue fighting to protect, and once you get them, you continue fight to protect them. If they are handed over to you, it becomes a privilege, and a privilege can be withdrawn at any time. So young people, be aggressive. Don't wait to be given anything. If you wait, itakuramba. I'm so proud that I'm used by politicians, I've gained from it, and I'll continue to be used because I know what I want. And if you want to buy my fellow brother, don't come last minute. Ati, unatoka Kileleshwa, you are coming to buy in Madari. We will ask for handouts from you. Because how come are you going to represent people whom you don't know their interests qua ground? Start community organizing now. Don't wait the last minute. Right now, if I call Sakaja and he doesn't receive my call, nawambia niko na watu ground. I have 300,000 people from Madari. So don't receive my call, but tutamit kwa ground. Mobilize, mobilize, mobilize.
Thank you.
And you will get the seat whether you have money or not. Thank you.
Far end, please, if possible.
Hello, my
Hi.
name is Hope McKenna from Pioneer International University. I have a question. You had mentioned that, someone mentioned inclusivity and diversity. Do you believe that the youth in diaspora have a role to play in our country's democracy? And if so, Which roles are these, and how can they vigilantly engage and participate in them? Thank you.
The middle? Inclusivity.
Okay, as far as they've talked about the youth being included in the government, I'm in a state of dilemma because, first of all, they've talked about changing the political views in parties all together with the ideologies so that the youth can be taken in. Yet, Dr. Chilwa has talked about it will be better for the youth to form political parties of their own to fight for the power, bearing the fact that elderly people in the government will accept their ideas and opinions according to their own terms and conditions. So I don't understand that, bearing the fact that you have to include inclusivity and diversity to ensure equal representation of the youth in the government.
So how do we phrase that as one question? Are we asking if the youth necessarily should form a party and not include the other people, or what is the question exactly?
Simply, I'm asking is it better for the youth to form a party as altogether for their own, or they fighting their way up in political parties owned by other people?
Okay, Dr. Sylvia, I think that's your question. All right, yeah.
We can hand it back to the panel first. We can hand it back to the panel first.
Sorry, the questions aren't done. We can answer the two, and then I know for a fact you've complained. It is here, the microphone is there. We're going to answer your question, all right? Is that okay? Is that okay? All right, let's answer the two questions first. The first question was on inclusivity, that goes to Jeremy. And the second question was to Dr. Sylvia. Should the youth necessarily form their own party to go on and advance democracy on their own, in their own party, or should they take this power specifically from already established parties? So I think I'll start with Jeremy first, as I let you ponder on the question.
Could you reiterate your question, please, about the youth in diaspora? Oh, okay, if they have a role to play.
Yeah, and which role it is, and
In?
how can they?
Pardon?
The role, if they have a role to play, which roles they are, if so, and how can they vigilantly engage in them?
Okay, we need to okay, let me answer your question. Thank you. For me to answer this question, we need to understand why the youth are in diaspora. For many reasons, could be for work, could be for education, and the like. But most of the youth in diaspora are actually working, and they're sending money back in form of remittances. If you look at our revenue makeup, remittances make a large part of this, and this can be helped in developing and building the country. So they do have a role to play as a youth in diaspora, albeit maybe their votes are less as compared to those who reside within the country. Each and every Kenyan citizen within Kenya or even without are vital in the progression of this country. That's just one of the many roles they have to play.
On to the question whether the youth should form their parties or join the already existing party, I would like to frame that question the other way around, because as said, really in Kenya we don't have political parties, but we have vehicles to power. So the young people want power for the sake of it, or for what reason? Because that is the question that we should be asking ourselves. Because when you want to get to power, there should be the reason as to why you want to get to power as young people, not power for the sake of it. And for that reason, therefore, what I could say is that we need to really have genuine political parties that are rooted at the grassroots, political parties that are inclusive, that is what we are talking today, are for the Kenyan people, and not for the youth alone, because you're there to serve. That is what leadership is all about. When you get to power, you're getting there to make policies for the people and for the good of the people. So if therefore that is the agenda, the existing political parties can be used by the young people to advance their cause. But as we have said, unfortunately, we do not have political parties in Kenya. So that would just be another way, again, of continuing with the same practice of really not having political parties, but a youth party that is established for the purposes of getting to power for the sake of it. And that is, I guess, not what really Kenyans want, but they want service, they want leadership, they want, to have the public goods delivered to them. Thank you.
Okay, I have the request by Ms. Kariuki to respond to both questions as well. And then I think I'll take the questions from the two ladies to your left, Tracy. Yeah, all right.
Thank you, Baraza. I'll begin with my sister. She asked what role youth in diaspora have to play and how can they be engaged. Now, I'll begin by saying that every Kenyan, young or old, within or without our borders, has a role to play in nation building, okay? Now, for young people who are in the diaspora, how do you play a role in governance? How do you play a role in nation building? One, you will realize that the remittances that come back into this country from expatriates or from our brothers in the diaspora are predominantly from people who are below the ages of 35. And as I think there was a report released about 2 weeks ago that the majority of that, or the bulk of that money, comes from young people working in the Gulf region. So that is one way. And that is one reason, at the very least, we should aggressively want to be on the table of decision making. If you are bringing money into this country, if you're paying taxes, if you're paying school fees, you should be able to ask your government, why am I not getting these services? How far has this gone? When can we expect this, okay? So how do you contribute to governance? Number one, you do that through public participation. Now, you can send in your opinions, your requests, you can lobby through emails, you can even directly write to the speakers of both houses of parliament. You can write to heads of committee in parliament with your opinions, with your suggestions, or what you'd like to see done. You can even engage Kenyan public servants at the various diplomatic emissaries and envoys, wherever you will be or wherever you are. And it's very important, by the way, for young people, wherever you are, know where the High Commissioner, where the ambassador is, for you, even for your own security. You might need to know some of these things. There's been a lot of discourse on political parties, and I don't know why my sister Elachi has not been brought on board to this. When you talk about ideology, somebody said NASA, TBIM. Those are not ideologies. Those are slogans. You cannot register a political party in Kenya without an ideology. And there are certain things you will not be allowed. You will not be allowed to register a political party based on ethnicity, religion, gender, and I can't remember the rest, but by the time we're done, I'll be able to tell you the rest of the ones that exist. A lot of the parties in Kenya are registered under Article 43 of the Constitution. That makes the bulk majority of political parties in Kenya social democracies or social democrat parties. We have the Communist Party. That is a Marxist ideology. We have parties registered in Kenya, like I think it's called the Green Movement Party, that is anchored on the ideology of climate change, conservation, environmental conservation, and whatnot. So basically, ideology is different from slogans, and every Kenyan political party must have an ideology. One thing that I would like for us to understand is we are in the age of information, and you have a constitutional right to access information. Right now, there's something called the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, and this office is, has the responsibility to regulate political parties in Kenya. It gives you everything, vast information on matters, political parties, democracies, processes in this country, and it's free. Just go online at saizi orpp.co.go.ke. Have a look at it. Look at all the political parties. They have outlined all the political parties there. You can check if you are a member of a political party for free. You can register for a political party there for free. You can deregister from a political party there for free. And there's a young man from Alliance who asked, what is it? Do you join a political party based on ideology, or do you form your own political parties? I would say go for either. At the end of the day, just decide what ideology do you stand for, and then find out which political party aligns with your values. If there's a political party that aligns with your values, work from there. It's easier that way. And then rise up the ranks like my brother talked about. And number two, you can also start your political party. You have a right to assemble, you have a right to associate, you have a right to political expression, and even being aligned to a political party in Kenya.
Okay, thank you very much. I will take more questions, and I'd like to limit the response time to at most 2 minutes, so that we have the capacity to answer more and more questions. So very, very quickly, I think you have the microphone here. Yeah.
I believe it's still afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
All right, good afternoon once again. Good afternoon. So my name is Adiwa Jang, and others know me by Sandra. So I'm a new student taking international relations in Valley Road, Daystar University. And my question goes to Dr. Chilwa, if I'm right. I don't know if I mispronounce your name. So in the context of Africa, so most of us, or majority of us, are aware of the divide and rule that was used by the colonialists to paralyze the anti-colonist struggle, only to, am I loud enough? So only to actually let the colonial empire exist, right? So, and then after now we had the political independence, whereby now the African countries adapted or tried to practice the Western democracy. So I believe that democracy is as young as the political independence of Africa. So from where I sit, actually I'm from South Sudan. So from where I sit, I believe that most countries, especially the African countries, are at war, and being that civil wars, we have so many people dying, and actually the coups that are still going on now in Niger, maybe most part of Africa. So my question goes like, how do you include the other countries to realize and practice democracy?
You got the question? Actually, all right. Very, very quickly, the next question. I want someone to ask a question to Honorable Beatrice Elachi. Tafadhali. Okay, sawa. You have another question there? Before? Okay. Since I'm closer, you can have the question as you take the question from right up there. I can just pass this microphone very quickly.
Okay, good evening. Yes, I would wish to understand something about democracy. Every time Kenyan people talk, they refer to as progressive democracy. I find that quite abstractive. I don't know whether democracy has some operationalization variable that can be measured. Is it that the fellow learned friends are using their intellect to fail us? Because every time they're telling us Kenya is a progressive democracy, sometimes you see it's a reality that there is a mess that everybody can interpret, but you are told we are in a progressive democracy. What does that mean? Or what is the difference between mature democracy and progressive? And why is it so a developing pattern in Africa, more so in Kenya?
Okay, thank you very much. I believe you got the question. You did? All right.
Okay, good afternoon. I've been sitting here and asking myself, we live in a country where we have different cultures. Honorable Elachi, I think you can elaborate how culture destroys democracy. Because when I look at you, I can imagine when you are campaigning. I think you had a bit, actually, najua ulikipata, kilikuramba. So I think you can tell us how to move from those cocoons of culture that we are trying to hold on and to come up, especially now that we have young people here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Atieno, and I have fought for the democracy of this microphone. So my question quickly is, as I sit here since beginning of the program, my heart is continuously breaking because of the narratives that you're continuously telling the group of young people in this room today. I am sure none of them, except maybe our students from Nairobi, have voted before. So all of them are not ID holders, all of them are not voters yet. And we're continuously telling them that Kenyans, young people's votes are bought, young people are perpetrators of violence, young people XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. Is that the narrative we want our young people to go home with? And is that the narrative we want them to come to 2027 election with? Young people, do you believe that you still vote? Yeah? Do you still that you will be used by politicians to take 1,000 shillings to exchange your lives for the next 5 years or more? So what narratives are we conclusively telling young people today as they go home? What should they remember about democracies? And how should they carry forward democracies in their youngness and in their youth? Because it breaks my heart. Thank you.
All right.
Good evening. My name is Harriet from Nairobi. I've been asking myself, there's a point where they said the youth should refrain from taking handouts. My question is, how can this youth somewhere refrain from taking handouts and he or she is not even enlightened or empowered to have that knowledge of why handouts are bad or how those handouts can influence them in doing bad things in the society? So I think you should elaborate more on that, or rather tell us more on how those youths are supposed to be empowered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think I'll take 2 questions from students. I'll take one here and one here.
So hello everyone. My name is Cynthia from Buruburu Girls. So this question goes to Dr. Chilwa. He said that the youth should compete for power in the government and that they should not complain and sit back relaxing. But what about the people's views? We are talking about democracy, right? So what have you got about to say about the percentage of people viewing the youth as too young or not have had enough experience? Or how do the youth prove that they also have good ideas and should also be part of the government?
Good evening. Okay, my name is Joanne from Pioneer International University, and my question goes to Ms. Beatrice Elachi. Live. Okay, so in the realms of human experience, we've been made to believe that morality and power don't go or don't work in the same direction. As a leader, somebody who's been in power for as long as I can remember, is this the case with you? And another question is, we have the Constitution, which provides a framework for governance and protects fundamental rights. That's the case, but Article 37, I think, it states that Kenyans or the citizens of Kenya, they have the right to demonstrate and picket and all that. But as far as any of us here, or any well-meaning citizen can say that Kenya has not had any peaceful demonstration. Why? Because every day we hear that some purported leaders organized some youths, not just anybody, but youths to come and disrupt a particular campaign or a particular political meeting. I'd ask, is it possible, or are we ever going to have a peaceful campaign without mentioning youths and calling them goons? Thank you.
I think I'll have that as at least the final round of questions, because I believe we are running short of time. If at any point you haven't had the chance to voice your question, my humblest of apologies. I promise we are not leaving here right now. We will surely get back to you. At this juncture, I think I'd start, let me bring it back the direction. Dr. Weston, I think I will start from you. You can respond to your questions. As we've said, we've limited the response time to 2 minutes per speaker, so try as much as possible to hit the nail on the head as you answer. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. Quick, the student from South Sudan. Of course, the challenges you're talking about of ethnic strife, political instability, it simply means that those countries have got democratic deficits, and your country is illustrative of the same. Levels of poverty are extremely high, such that the mantra is that you cannot build a democracy on poverty. Peasants don't scaffold democracy. You need to empower people economically, and we talk about the middle class. You ensure that every other citizen, there is that ample space, conducive environment to get into that category of social economic well-being, and then that will constitute the bedrock of democracy. So the poverty we have in Africa and in South Sudan does not augur well for democracy. It's paternalistic to talk about somebody else, going to another country to tell them how to practice democracy. You can see even in the West, in the US, they are struggling. Why? Because democracy is a universal value. It's not a Western concept. That's why they have not even gotten it right themselves. But at least you can see that their institutions are robust enough to withstand those tectonic forces from some rogue political elite and stuff like that. Question at the back. There are certain metrics about democracy, things to do with justice, things to do with sovereignty reposing in the people, that the leadership is scared of the people. It's not the other way around. Whenever you find the people are scared of the political elite and the leadership, that's not a democracy. And there's justice, there's rule of law. And fundamentally, there are norms. You've heard people talk about the Constitution, but the Constitution in and of itself does not make a democracy. What makes a democracy? There are norms, shared codes of conduct, that as a people of Kenya, this is how we behave. Anybody who falls short of this describes themselves as somebody who is un-Kenyan. And therefore, if you're holding public service, you do the honorable thing and you fall on your sword. Those are values, norms that build a democracy. Otherwise, the Constitution, if it was, we would have made tremendous stride. It doesn't. Africa, sometimes we hear about the Western form of democracy, the liberal democracy. And then some people talk about the African version. Well, I'm not so sure. Because even in Kenya, I don't know how many ethnic groups are there, so which version of democracy will you use? Or in Nigeria, over 250. So that's problematic. Instead, let's focus on, is there justice in our midst? Is there mutual tolerance in our midst? Is there fair play in our midst? Those are things that we can actually strive and uphold, as opposed to defining, in terms of semantic exactitude, what are we doing? Let's concentrate on the substance of what we're doing. Youth, well, it's not mutually exclusive.
What do you do in your position as a member of parliament? So by the mere fact that the youth are there and they are participating does not necessarily translate into representation. And that is what we should be focused on in looking at the integrity of the leaders that we put into power, bringing into play the values and that we are talking about. Talking to the student, feeling that it's really been a very pessimistic and the role of the youth and where the youth, just to encourage you that we really need to work with facts and as they are, and what are statistics telling us? That the youth are not participating. They are not voting, they are not there. So it is a reality. And I believe that that is what democracy is. Democracy is not a destination. Democracy is not a thing to be found. It's not out, but it's a dialogue. It is what people decide. This is how we want to be governed. This is how we want things to go. And that is why we say it is the rule of the people. So that is why we are here having these dialogues, because that is how we grow our democracy, through dialogues. And we want to really thank this opportunity to be advancing our democracy this way. So the youth, don't feel discouraged. You still have your share if you are ready to go for it. And if you are ready.
Nobody gives you space. You fight for that space. That is why it's called a political space. And when you sit on that decision-making organ called political, then you must ensure you deal with what you agreed. And today we have 65% of young people in parliament. So let's start from there. Because if we continue saying youth and they're already there, then there's something very wrong. Then we, who are supposed to be moving out, will be wondering, what are you now saying? Because you have representation. The problem is not representation now. The problem must be something else. Are they learning what we did wrong instead of doing it right? Should be now accountable to you to start asking them in these spaces that you're in, what is wrong that we are not seeing now? Young people coming out and seeing the transformation that you believe when you're in that space you can give. That is one. Now, second, we have to ask ourselves, in terms of morality, Joanne, if you start it when you are young, it will find you there. If you follow the values of what you're taught in your university, in my university, in Daystar, you will live like that. So it depends. So you can't tell me you'll come to now sit on a bigger organ is when you start morality. No, there's somewhere it started. It starts when your parents will decide you had 250 marks and takes you to Alliance. It starts there. It starts there. That's where dad and mom does it wrong for you. They prove to you you can go to a better school, but you know very well you didn't pass to go to that school. Then you come to campus and you struggle so much. And then now you're forced by professor to start now going back and down because you're about to even exit because it started somewhere. So don't just look at this top. It has to start at our foundation. It's the same way if a child from Suba in the islands gets A to come to Alliance, and the child in Nairobi goes to Alliance, you know that child passed through a lot to come to Alliance. So it's also in schools. That democracy we talk about, we must look at not just at government level. it cuts across. It cuts across our education system. What we did wrong, how are we gonna fix that? When shall we ever have a child in Kenya learning freely like in any other country in the Western country where education is for all and it is in public schools? When? So those are some of the questions we should be asking as we think of good democracies, good transformation. You see, when you go through a system that was a bit better for you, you assume other kids are with that. No. So it's something we have to work. And if you have that privilege, then learn how to get the other one who went through a hard system. But now education has put you at the same level, and that is how now, why we fight for education, because it's the only thing that will bring you on a table with a president's daughter and you'll be discussing the same, regardless of their backgrounds. And you don't care of their backgrounds because you are all at the same level. That's why education becomes very key in cleaning democracies. Then now let's come to culture. You see, in Kenya, when we talk of politics, my mother is a Kikuyu, my dad is a Luya. So when you are campaigning, you have to explain both. You really need to explain. And if you find yourself in a territory where they believe in the culture of your father and they are wondering, why are you coming into this space from this other, then you will find it so difficult. And you have to explain yourself, and it becomes a key issue. And not just that. If you are married in that community, you have taken so many kids to school. They will never remember the good you did. The day you decide you're coming to politics, that is the day now Kenyans realize, oh, you are a Kikuyu. Oh, you are a Luya. You are a Luo. So we have to clean our democracy as we start from the basics. We must ask ourselves, as you come to do services to people, does your tribe really work? When you are a doctor, do you ask the tribe? When you are donating blood, do you ask the tribe? So it's something we need to. And lastly, Baraza, so that I hand over. Peaceful demonstrations. You see, we can do peaceful demonstrations. But we have believed, and it is us now politicians, that it is a must, it has to be messy, it has to go violent so that people can listen. But we can do peaceful. And I agree with him and disagree on one thing. Because I am one person who is in ODM, yes, but I remember telling my principal, my Baba, that look, we have done the barazas. If we are moving to demonstrations, I am out of that space until we finish. Because I knew, as he said, others will come in, we will lose young people, and we are women. And the leadership of women is very different on how men look at leadership, because we are judged more harshly than any other person. So as a woman, a mother, a bearer who gives birth, you can never allow a son, a daughter of any to go through bloodshed, to die, to bury a young person just because we were trying to fight for political space. So for me as a woman, I walk out. But then that does not remove my principles. That does not remove what I believe in. But I have to also show that there is leadership in women where we can allow all these things, but they must be done within a space where, in the end of the day, we can sit down and speak. That is leadership for women. So as I end with Ajang, the biggest mistake Africa has done is to decide that those who are in power will remain the way the Westerners were in power. And the worst is, we allow, other countries allow same leaders to come to our countries, to thrive in our countries. They have killed in their countries. They have left people in camps. They have left people poor
But here we welcome, we give them a safe haven, they buy everything, they buy property, and we are just okay as Africa. That is what Africa should change. As we change what she said, how do you ensure young people understand what we are saying? That is another conversation of another day. Thank you.
Okay. I think I'm the last speaker, and I know due to time constraints, I won't really say as much. Thank you, Mheshimiwa. Those were words of wisdom. And as young people, we should listen. Okay, there's one question which has not been answered, and this is the question on handouts. And I'd like you guys to quote me. Any young person in this room, you can quote me anywhere, and I will not be ashamed. You see those handouts they give you, take them. I'd want you to take them. You can clap. Take them, eat
Round
them.
of applause.
Take those handouts. And why is this? These people are funded to campaign. And I have friends, some of them hail from Kibra, and majority of the target audiences of these politicians. And my friend was telling me in a week he'd eat almost 25,000 Kenya shillings just from campaigns. 25, you can imagine, 25,000. And I would wonder, where will you get that money from? In the slums, where will you get that money? So eat these monies, but be careful. Be careful not to corrupt your ideals. Be careful not to corrupt your morals. Eat this money with caution. I am moving on swiftly to the last question on culture. I believe you asked culture and democracy. Now I'll speak as an IR student, as a student of international relations here in Daystar. I've compared and contrasted different types of democracy. And to combat this culture crisis I think we face as a country, I think we will opt for what we call fractal democracy. This is, to simply put it, a stratified form of democracy that's broken down into many layers from the grassroots levels, as Dr. Kenya said, all the way up to the regional and then national levels. And it just comprises of two things, as I conclude. It comprises of a decentralized government. This is where decision-making is distributed across multiple levels of government. As I've mentioned, the local, to the regional, to the national government. And each level of government could operate with autonomy, its own independence, and have its own democratic processes, which of course mirror the democratic system of the country. And our last, what it comprises of, the nested democratic structure. Now this is layered, whereas different governments, again starting from the grassroots levels, the village, to maybe your county, and all the way to the national government, all have a pattern of their democratic system, and it's shared across the whole nation. So thank you. This will break down now the cultural biases that we see. Thank you. Back to you.
A round of applause for all our panelists. Now I'd like to quickly recognize the presence of Kenswood Secondary School. They came in a little bit late, and I just thought it was important that we mention and we recognize their presence. Due to time constraints and natural constraints as well, I would like to now formally conclude the panel discussion. I would like to believe that it has been very informative. It has been very interesting. A couple of words have been thrown around. And as I said, if there are any questions that haven't been responded to, don't worry, we're still here. We will try as much as possible to respond to them. Let me conclude to those of us who read the Bible, Isaiah 61, arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord is upon thee. You can quote me on this, Democracy 13:9, arise, shine, for your time has come, and the light of democracy shall shine upon thee. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Let's give a big round of applause to Thorn Baraza and our panelists as they take back their seats. Tuwapigie makofi tafadhali. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That has been very, very informative, I must say. And you see, the young people who are here, when we were in school, I know I look young, but niko hii category ya kina hawa. When we were in school, we rarely had chances like this where we engage politically, directly. And I know for a fact, because I'm part of this, that CMD has made a conscious decision to really, make sure that the young Democrats come up better than what we came out as. So I am glad that you guys had notebooks. I'm glad that most of you sat through the whole session. But I also know that you people have to be back to school. Most of you actually were supposed to be back to school by now, 5:30, probably by 6. But we want to end this. I know we were supposed to have a session for presentation of a research. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, we will ask that probably the research is shared electronically to the schools, to all of us, so that we see what it was all about, okay? So tafadhali, the teachers, make sure you leave us your contacts. These are things that young people should know. We will share it with Tracy, the organizer. Will make sure that everybody who is here, the organizations, everybody who is here will get the research as presented by Dr. Daktari, and you can discuss it in your own spaces. I want to give a vote of thanks. No, let me call Frank to give a vote of thanks and finish it off. Sawa, Frank. So from me, I'm kind of through. Thank you very much, guys, for coming. Thank you for staying on. We've cut some things in the program because I want us to have time to go and have something to eat. Okay? So once Frank is through, hapo kwa chakula mbona mfurahi? Eish. Ni yes ama no? So Frank is also not going to take a lot of time, and then he'll be through. Frank.
Thank you, Papi. I'm not the host. We only co-organizers, and I think it will only be fair to allow Daystar to move a vote of thanks, and I can see Mr. Ombulwa coming. For our young brothers, I think the lady from Nairobi said something quite significant that it's worth to respond to. We have to be very careful about the narratives that we prefer so that we do not confuse our young people. We didn't come here to preach hopelessness. We have to market hope every day. This country is ours, and we must do everything to make it better today and much better tomorrow. Please, we need to spice our democracy. And by spicing our democracy, I have the following values for you as you go back to school. The S means we need leaders who can embrace more simplicity as a value. I happen to tour this world with Kenyan politicians, and they are taken aback by how leaders in other jurisdictions carry themselves. I was once in a foreign country with a former vice president who was the leader of delegation, and we were touring parliament, and he was taken aback by the arrival of the speaker of parliament of that country on a bicycle. We are also contributing to the lifestyle of our leaders. When Honorable Lachi wants to live modestly and does not want to steal your CDF, after she has served out her term, we will be the same Kenyans laughing at her. So what did she get after serving as a member of parliament? Are we together? My younger brothers and sisters, simplicity. In my modest position, I get many questions. Why don't I have a driver and a bodyguard? I don't need one. But then there are demands of society that when you are in particular positions, you must fake it. Please, simplicity is a value that I want us to. Elachi has said something about peace. We must protest, but peacefully. For my spice, the P is peace. integrity. It is actually unfashionable to be a person of integrity in this country. We revere crooks, we elect crooks, and then 3 days later we look back and ask, who are
of CMD Kenya. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Wambulwa from the Department of Peace and International Studies. Mine is brief, and as has been said, the time is not on our side. I would like here just to give a very brief vote of thanks to appreciate each and every one of us who has played a very significant role to make this day possible and successful. First of all, my gratitude and appreciation goes to the host. Thank you, host, represented by Professor Samuel Mureithi. Thank you very much for allowing us to gather here, allowing us to use your facilities, allowing us to use the Daystar community to host this event. Thank you very much, Professor Mureithi, on behalf of our VC. Second and not least is that I want to also appreciate our guests, our distinguished guests. Thank you very much, the Principal Secretary, Honorable Geoffrey Kaituko, PS Labor, Skills and Development. Thank you, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, the MP Dagoretti North. Indeed, your insights are very powerful. Thank you so much. In absentia, I will also acknowledge the input, the contribution of Dr. Johnston Kuya, the Senior Policy Officer, Strategic Partnerships Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Then I will also appreciate the team that came from UN Women, Angel Wambugu. I'll also appreciate Helen Mushunu, Gender Governance Specialist, UN Women, among others. Then I'll also appreciate the Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of Norway in Nairobi, Anne Gay Shea. I hope I've got it right. Then I want to take this opportunity to appreciate our partners, the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, the team that came from CMD Kenya. We had Franklin Mukwanja. There is Mudengi Mbuvi, I think back there. Then there is Range Mwita somewhere. Thank you, Tracy Osogo, again, for also doing quite a wonderful job. In the same vein, I would like to extend my appreciation to some of the key people from Daystar who made it possible. Corporate Affairs, represented by Damaris Kimilu. Daystar Production Unit, Ian Kiyama, I know he's somewhere. I'll also appreciate Alex Mutuku, our marketing manager. Thank you so much, the School of Arts and Social Sciences, represented here by the HOD, Dr. Justice Musia. Thank you, each and every person from that school and everywhere else for playing your part in this. Then I thank you so much, the institutions represented. I will not mention all of you, but I recognize your presence. You are coming, your participation, your contribution is actually very good. Okay. So thank you so much. And besides that, of course, I need to appreciate representatives from Inter-Party Youth Forum. And yes, that is it. If I've not mentioned you, it is not to say that you never played any role Indeed, you did very well. Thank you very much. We have learned about democracy. Very simple, what I know about it is that we just need to work on our political culture, build our political culture so that it is very robust and able to thrive and be fruitful. With those few remarks, I want to thank you so much. Can we rise for a word of prayer?
So after the prayer, just a quick one, after the prayer, we'll give out, Daystar has organized some gifts. I also know CMD. So they can be handed over as we continue with the other things. So let's pray.
Okay, let's bow down our heads. I will pray. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening, glorifying and exalting your name. Indeed, you are the Lord God of all hosts. We thank you for assembling us in this place. You have done a wonderful thing, my Lord, for you have gathered us to deliberate on matters concerning this nation and this continent. My Lord, in everything that we have done, my Lord, may you edify, may you build us up, and may you unite us to do what is right, what is good for this land, Kenya, and beyond. We entrust all our cares and burdens to you. May you go ahead of us in everything we do, and may you sustain us. Those who are going back, my Lord, may you give them journey mercies, and may you give them safety even as they reach their homes. We thank you even for the refreshments prepared by the cafeteria, and we pray, my Lord, that it may be nourishment to our bones to serve and glorify you. In Jesus' name we pray and believe.
Amen. Thank you. A quick one. The Inter-Party Youth Forum. I've requested a photograph with Madam Beatrice Elachi. So instead of doing it here, the members, mnataka kupigia hapa. Hapa sasa ninataka kufanya shughuli zingine. Sijui nitawafanya aje. We have gifts here. Please come. Kidogo tu. Come. In the meantime, can I have Okay, so this was will be given out. IPYF, pandeni juu haraka haraka mpige picha.
Shagala bagala, niko tayari kulipa gharama, sitasimama.
Tracy amesema hataki pedho.
Now, democracy is the word for today, and the word for
sound.
Kula shule uko na kachai kwa mwili. Students, please, let's start with you guys. There are 2 service points. Here and the other side, you'll be directed by the
thing that is taking place with democracy, courtesy of CMD Kenya, which was taking place here live in Daystar University Valley Road campus. Now, various speakers have spoke on democracy, and one of the key aspects that we are going to see is that the issue of inclusivity and diversity, especially among the Kenyan youth. Now, people have addressed the issue of inclusivity in that the youth need to include themselves in anything that concerns democracy. Another thing that was highlighted by the PS himself of Labor and Skill, Honorable Geoffrey Kituko, he said that for youth to engage in democracy and move the country forward, we need to participate in skills and improve or participate in anything that involves our skills and everything that we do. Another thing that was highlighted by one of the honorable speakers, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, was that the women also should participate in anything to do with democracy, and women have the upper hand, and they can do anything that is possible to take Kenya and the democratic and political system to another level, which is also what youth need, and especially the female agenda. Another thing that was highlighted is that Kenyan youth do not participate in any democratic parties or any democratic works. For example, the Kenyan youth, it is a very high percentage of Kenyan youth that do not vote or do not know even their area MCA or area MPs, and therefore we are advised as Kenyan youth that we should take part in anything that concerns democratic involvement, so as to take the Kenyan political party or Kenyan democratic system to another level. And also apart from the diversity and inclusivity, another thing that was very key is that we need parties that work, and not just any parties that are there in form of political parties and do not work. And therefore, one of the panel speakers, who was a lecturer from Daystar University, highlighted that Kenya has only multi-parties that do not, that are there for decoration, and rather the vehicles of power, rather than parties that include and involve the people and give the people services. And therefore, as young people, we need to work. And of course, maybe if you interview one of the founders and also the key people that play a key role in the CMD Kenya, let me have with us the Executive Director, Mr. Franklin Mukwanja. Of course, we have Mr. Franklin Mukwanja with us. He is the Executive Director of CMD Kenya. Good evening, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you so much, and good evening to you.
Hope you have had a good day with a successful event as this.
Yes, we have had a really good day with a lot of young people. If you look at the age of 13 to anything in early 20s, this is the Kenya now, and the Kenya tomorrow, and the Kenya in the future. So we begin the journey of fixing this country today, of talking about how to lead simply and in simplicity, how to peaceably and peacefully live together, and how to live a life of integrity, how to be together as a community with common interests, and how to make sure that we're pursuing equity and being good stewards of the country that God has bestowed us. We are sure that the country will not just be better today, but it will be much better tomorrow. So I'm very excited for having had this partnership with Daystar.
Okay, Mr. Mukwanja, maybe when you tell us what was the drive purpose of enlightening the youth, why choose the youth and not maybe enforce of those people who are already in the seats?
This country is young. The majority of the beneficiaries of service delivery, the majority of decision makers, the majority of the people who suffer when this country is not doing well, the majority of the people who stand to benefit when we're doing well is young people. They must therefore not take a back seat. They must take a front row and ensure that we are not only talking about the shared problems and a common analysis of what is ailing us, but how are they individually and collectively contributing to defining solutions to solve these societal problems. That is why, as an organization, we work with political parties, yes, but there is no future, there is no courage without having young people having a firm grasp of what is ailing us, and that they are the solutions to these things. They need to begin thinking about these ideas.
And with such a big organization such as CMD Kenya, how can the young people plug in and join such organizations through various? Are there ways that the youth who was a political party somewhere can join the CMD Kenya in one or another?
We have a lot of opportunities. First, as an organization, the first line of benefits is that a school like Daystar can provide the students. In fact, one of the organizers or part of my staff that organized this event and chose Daystar is a Daystar alumni, Tracy Osogo.
from the international relations, class. And she graduated here, has been working with us, just completed her master's, and is part of midwifing such projects and taking back this. So we have opportunities to offer training to fresh graduates. We have a very elaborate internship program, a graduate training program that ensures that we prepare young people as good workers for today and for tomorrow. We work with political parties. We are in the civic sector. We can be able to refer. We have such events that we organize. We can be able to absorb even a whole class for young people to volunteer, and even on a small stipend, be able to learn organizational skills, learn team leadership, learn how to, conceptualize projects and sustain them to an end. So there are many opportunities. We also have consulting opportunities. Young people can be able to come and say, look, we are proficient in communication. We are proficient in digital technologies. Can we utilize our skills to offer services at a fee to improve the visibility and impact of organization? So we're not just stating things that we don't do, we are living the spirit that we are really pushing forward.
I think that's all for now. Thank you so much, Mr. Mkwanja, and I hope to see you and wish you success in your endeavors.
Thank you so much for your time as well.
Thank you so much. Now, I think that's all for us today in the Daystar University Live, and also the CMD Kenya, the Day of Democracy, as you can see. And remember to follow all platforms, social media platforms. You can follow CMD Kenya in the social media platforms. You can follow Daystar_Uni on Instagram. You can follow Daystar Uni at Twitter, and also you can follow Daystar University Official on Facebook. And also don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share everything that you've learned today in Daystar University Live. And also don't forget the good work job done by the Daystar production unit that is does production locally, and also just in case if you want also to do production in your future and others, also you can contact us. That's all for us today. Please participate in everything that you build democracy in our country. Go vote. Go participate in the political parties, be aware of the current affairs, be aware of what is going on in the government. And I've been your host today, Ron Otieno. See you and God bless.